our desire, our vision of the prospects of the benefit of a better life. That's the instrument on our way. I would like to remind also that many of such instruments and chances were lost, and that's a pity in the past. But now there's one more chance, and we shouldn't lose it, shouldn't waste it. And one more thing that we emphasize, and we have been emphasizing it all the time, it's about very simple things, and that's coordination of cooperation. Historically, in the country, there are many state authorities which are responsible for the policy in energy sector, and that's because of the size of the country. But today, it's like the main thing, coordination between all the participants of the process, the friendly coordination, not to coordinate, not to blame anyone, but to do so that everything works, despite who's right, who's wrong. Coordination with this objective, so that the victory is a common victory. And I would like to emphasize that, and to complete my statement addressing the issue of regulator, and that is what requires another impulse for reform to take place, so that the reform continues. It's very important, and that's one of our biggest expectations from the new political season. I believe that coordination and goodwill of all those involved in the process will be the key to success.
Natalia, Boyko has to leave us, but maybe a very short question to all of you. In addition to the, let's say, a new regulator, a straightforward question: what kind of decisions, what deadline we have to ensure to, let's say, to see who is going to become the winner, who is going to continue status quo, and what decisions should be, let's say, observed or let's say followed in September, October, the level of parliamentary coordination decisions, for us to see whether we're moving ahead or we're just in a dead end. Very brief answer would be, in my opinion, at this stage, this is going to be the market. Immediately after we finalize the last, let's say, drawing up of the secondary legislation, we'll understand what kind of segment of this act is going to be covered by which body, and we have to very attentively follow the finalization and their discussion and adoption. This is the superb important task for the next 18 months, I would say. And this will bring us to understand whether we're moving ahead or not. And of course, we're going to have a number of different important things like, and I believe my colleagues will finalize the issue of ombudsman, and all of us, we are going to push through the new regulator. So we are going to have some big important pieces, but we should become agile to see what is going to be adopted in the secondary legislation. Katser-Buchkovska. Several times they mentioned the Verkhovna Rada, new regulators. You know this process on the go. There were two attempts to appoint members of the Competitive Competition Commission to select the National Committee for Regulation of Power, Energy, and the Utilities. So we already signed, and we plan to present to our fractions Mr. Kovalchuk and Gleb from the Center of Economic Strategy as two representatives of the Verkhovna Rada of the Parliament of Ukraine and as members of this competition commission. We are going to propose this to the factions. We are going to support that in the parliament. This is not an easy process. We have to have a politically neutral person, on the one hand, to be supported by the public at large, on the other hand, by political factions and MPs. We cannot support the people who are members of political parties because this brings about the kind of resistance. We can support the people who are subordinated to administratively in to some the largest companies, energy generators, but then nevertheless, we believe that the aforementioned people will become a certain compromise. On the other hand, the cabinet ministers and the president haven't appointed their candidates, so not only the parliament. So please do not forget about that. Very short, the correct thesis. You ask what do we require from the parliament by taking into consideration the very close deadlines for the integration of our networks. We deem it necessary to introduce something like a coordination center for introduction of the market. We need to give the similar status to some kind of association or unification under the cabinet ministers and the administration, the presidential administration, because this is in the area of responsibility of the regulator. And we are talking about giving the money to the subject of this, to make it possible. And the policy section related to the certain standards, etc. So already we came up with this initiative. I believe that after September, when they resume the political activity in the country, they're going to establish coordination center, which will contain the representatives of the authorities, maybe a regulator. We also maybe this price should be established at the level of the National Defense and Security Council of Ukraine. We do appreciate the efforts of the parliament. The majority of our proposals were adopted or taken into consideration. The final touch in speaking about the prices, which is of concern to everybody. So as of today, this price is 45.5 euro per Ukraine. This is a mix, taking into consideration euro item, which is 2 cents, etc. So the wholesale price is 45 euros. Estonia, a small country without their own generation, without their own resources, anything at all, their price 26 euro. The biggest the price today is 33. So this is a result of the year being part of the Finnish system, then through Lithuania and Poland. Very short. Speaking about deadlines, I would like to remind you since December 11th, this year, the Article 34 of the law, the electric power market, will become effective. That means that Ukrhydroenergo will have to start operating as operator of the transition. They go through certification in 6 months or maximum 8 months after the date when this law becomes effective. If they have to approve their the statute, and they have to go through certification, and the draft regulatory acts are already in place, but certification might be provided by regulator. And this is a big risk, which we mentioned before, because on November 26, 2 more members of this committee have to be dismissed. And since 26th to 27th of November, the regulator will not be able to take care of this certification. This is just one of the examples that they won't be able to move ahead. So those deadlines are very clear, and we have to pay attention to those, and we have to inform the public at large and inform them very honestly and sincerely, very briefly. In fact, not only for the regulator but also for the ministry, there are 2 key issues to take care of or to resolve, without resolving of which the market will not operate. What Roman mentioned, we are talking about the law on debts, whether it's going to be raised and whether they will find a common decision between the participants and the ministry. And number 2, the support of the thermal power plans, and those are two basic documents without which, in fact, we are not going to have clear understanding how the market is going to operate. Especially, this is a very difficult issue if we are talking about the debts. Okay, the questions from the audience. Natalia Prutka, you have the floor. Microphone, please. Natalia Prutka, Glavcom. And the first question is addressed to Vsevolod Kovalchuk. Will you please tell me the market which has to be launched cannot efficiently operate if the realm big amounts of the gross subsidies resulted from Rotterdam Plus, the drastic increase of the wholesale price, and the reason that they actually we're actually overdoing with the thermal generation, how the market can actually start operation, and what are the sums for the cross. Actually, this question is not to me, but to energy market. I can say that if you're talking about the cross subsidies in this state of the thermal generation, there are different two issues, not for the last year. No, but this was straight to the drastic or the abrupt increase of price. Yes, it's true. But when the law will be in full place, we have the one transition period for 1 year when they are going to use the special tariffs when Ukrhydroenergo, etc. This is according to law. And the cross subsidies will disappear since July 2020. Up to that, so are we going to increase the price again? 5 stages plus more. Maybe Boyko should explain it in more details. We have to fight not with the decrease of the payments of the population for the electric power, but we have to fight for the increase of the incomes. The prices for the household cannot be lower than the industrial prices. This is unnatural. Even in the Soviet Union, the prices for the households were twice as high as for the industry. But when they increased the prices, they promised that they will bring it to the economical justified level. But then the tech appeared, and Mr. Vovk presented us with Rotterdam. With all respect, maybe we should put this question to Mr. Vovk. No regulation can bring any good as the simple competition. And my position is to create such competition. If there is competition, there are low prices. We can regulate it to whatever position and have the prices the highest in Europe. If we are going to have the open market with external players without limitations for competition, those problems will be lifted automatically. We should not put the critical issues to regulator, to the players in the market, etc. But anyway, until we have competition, we won't have good order here. We do not need Rotterdam Plus when they trade in the power with the Slovakia. They don't care about that. So this is our objective. Let it take a little longer time. As for the cross subsidies, it shouldn't be in place. It's clear that the price should be formed under the market conditions. If we are talking about the energy for, a priori it would be more expensive as compared to other approach. But you are right. I cannot argue with you that in fact the goal which was set before to balance off the prices after all those stages and to do something about the cross subsidies, this objective was not achieved. We have to do something about that and investigate that matter. But this question, with all due respect, it should not be addressed to us. But the prices for the electric power will be increased again when? I don't know, but you communicate between each other. Our UKRENERGO tariff, if we take the short period or 20-year period, in percentage, among all other players in the market generation, the distributors, they increased much less than in their cases. And taking into consideration our we invest very cheap loans from the International Financial Organization. Our tariff is 7 kopecks, from the average balance 140 hryvnia. This is a part of the Ukrhydroenergo. We will not increase the tariff for you, but again, if you're talking about the well-weighted situation in the market, we have to ask this question to somebody else.
The draft law Natalia mentioned about energy security, with what objective are you planning this law? And when you want to forecast the future, look into the past. The past, Crimea. Russia killed immediately 4 powerful projects on extracting oil and gas. This was killed. They killed our gas production, they killed half of our transit. The first north flow, then the second one will be built, and Ukraine will achieve nothing by diplomatic methods. And what about this law? Now they will direct all their efforts against ENTSO-E project. What are the guarantees that it will not be like with the Crimea? I started my presentation from saying that Russia is not sleeping. They got Nord Stream 2, and Lithuania received nuclear power plant. When they got disconnected, they received this nuclear power plant, which is not the most modern. What will we get as a reaction to ENTSO-E? I believe there will be a strong economic and political resistance, but nevertheless it's the right way forward. As to the law, we got this idea 1.5 years ago when, together with the colleagues working with international organizations, we understood that there's no single position of the state as to communication and lobbying our interests abroad. And this law, first of all, is to create one single coordination center on issues of energy security, and this will be more foreign political work than the work inside the state. First of all, this agency will be forming the policy, and it will coordinate the bodies, executive bodies, in part of supporting the energy interests, energy diplomacy. And we are now discussing this issue, and that's a question to experts, to the public, to key players of the market. The center, whether the center should be created on the basis of the Cabinet of Ministers or on the basis of the Security and Defense Council, because it will be working on energy diplomacy and energy security. And also, what is our policy? What is our foreign economic vector, internal vector? What are the threats? How should we implement diversification? We have successes, but they are not systemic. And we have become sort of independent from Russian gas, but still we purchase the Russian gas just by at a different price. To say nothing about nuclear waste, ENTSO-E, which will have to be discussed. It all is to be coordinated, and when the parliament was elected, that was included into our coalition agreement. And then political parties, So join us in this discussion. The whole September and October will have a public discussion, expert discussions of the necessity. There should be a thin line between regulating and coordinating. It is important not to interfere with market processes. There should be a certain limit. On the one hand, the market there should be competition in the market, but also there should be a state policy which will support our interests so that we don't have such losses as in the past. It's we do have the draft law, and in September we'll have public discussion. That's the initiative of the MPs, of me and my team. I would like to remind you, a few weeks ago we had a discussion on resisting to Nord Stream 2, and there were experts from Russia and from London. Everyone was talking about necessity of coordination, about creation of a certain body that would be coordinating it. We do have such representatives, and there's coordination in the USA. There are EU directives, there's coordination like that in the Great Britain, but they take care of their energy security. Any other questions? Ukrainian National News, you were talking about possible resistance of Russia. Is there any plan how to counteract this resistance? That is the issue of cyber security and protection of our critical infrastructure from physical terrorism. Now, the issue of protection from cyber attack, you saw what happened a few days ago, and that is very important, and that is important in the context that first we need to modernize the defense functions of our critical infrastructure, and we to cooperate with the best institutions. We lobby the cooperation with the Center of Energy Security of NATO. We are talking about the fact that now we have such cooperation with the Center of Cyber Security. This aspect is very important, and here we need to be at the same level as other states. What other obstacles could there be? It's difficult to guess, but this could be even political influence via media and information campaign. What does Russia say about our gas transportation system? That it's not reliable. If we analyze it, and that's what we hear from our European colleagues, if we analyze it, the level of emergency situations is higher than statistical in Europe. Information campaign could be very wide, down to discrediting the politicians who will be defending this process. But we need to be ready to that. It's not a simple process. Thank you. We have time for one more question. To clarify, the green tariff for our alternative generation is protected by the law, and its change will not depend on whether the markets are open and we are able to buy cheaper generation from Europe. First of all, we have the law. The green tariffs are fixed by the law, and they are guaranteed by the state till 2029 at the level which we have now. 2029 is not so far away, and now investors start asking what will happen next and how will green generation be regulated after that. I believe that till then there will be no changes for the projects which have been commissioned. On the other hand, there's a lot of criticism that green tariff is very high and it's expensive for the state and for the citizens. So now at the level of the committee we discuss how to make the system better. We're not talking about cancelling it, but how to make it competitive and so that it develops faster. But there's no boom of green generation in Ukraine. The investors, global investors who are used to investing, they see that the tariff is high, but the risk that it could be changed is also high, and we don't understand what will be after. And we are offering to investors the scheme that they're used to. Those who work in European countries may be more competitive system, some other system of support, but so that it's not something that allows to invest. Andrii, very briefly, the green tariff does not depend on the market because it's the guarantee given by the state. In some European countries, the tariff influences the market price. In Germany, the price, the wholesale price for electricity is much lower because of the green tariff. Now we have this guarantee in the law. If something changes, then Europe switches to the system of auctions. And that is what the energy community insists on. Thank you. I thank everyone who found time for this very interesting discussion. We'll go back to these issues regularly in the end of autumn. We'll look at the deadlines and we'll understand whether we can count on that.